Hi, I'm Nikki Jovicic from LookUpStrata, and I'm also Managing Director of Tower Body Corporate on the Gold Coast. And for today's session, we're joined by several people. We have Alisha Fisher here from SCA to head up the discussion, and we have a panel of strata managers from around Australia who are here to tell you about their experiences as a strata manager. This session came about after a discussion Alisha and I had about challenges facing the strata industry. One of the biggest challenges we have seen is staffing. The industry is growing at such a fast rate, more buildings are being built and more strata managers are required, but where do they come from? And how do we promote this career on a broader scale? I know this is something SCA has been working on for quite a while now, and I'm a bit in awe of what Alisha and her team have been doing and the progress they've made. Within the strata world, strata is known as the recession-proof industry, but is this known generally? I've assisted on stalls for SCA at a few career and employment events, and the biggest challenge is what is strata and what does a strata manager do? That's why we thought you would be a good audience. You know what strata managers do, you communicate with them regularly, and you've probably got a fairly good idea of the role. So would you make a good strata manager? Let's see. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that the information contained in the session, including the discussions that arise from submitted questions, is not legal advice, and you should not rely upon this as legal advice. You should seek independent advice before acting on the information contained in today's session. We thank Alisha Fisher, Chief Executive Officer Australasia at Strata Community Association, for joining us today. Alisha has a wealth of experience as a CEO, having worked in professional membership associations for over 25 years, and has a strong interest in increasing the professionalism within a sector with a focus on professional development and education. She joined Strata Community Association in August 2018. And on our panel today, we're joined by Marquand, General Manager and Senior Body Corporate Manager from Tower Body Corporate in Queensland, Nicole, Executive Strata Manager from Signature Strata in the ACT, and Dilber, Beattie, Director, Senior Strata Manager at Superior Strata in New South Wales. Now, after Alisha's presentation, we'll be hearing from each of the panellists, and they'll be telling us about how they became a strata manager, what their role looks like, and I'm sure much more. Okay, I'll leave you with Alisha now to carry on the session. And Alisha, thanks so much for joining us in the session today.
Thanks, Nikki, and good morning, everyone. So I do realise there's obviously a variety of people on the webinar, which could be current managers from the industry, but also owners and committee members. So strata management is an industry looking for enthusiastic and reliable professionals. 1 in 4 Australians now own and occupy a unit in a strata community, and this is projected to grow dramatically over the next decade. This upsurge in demand for housing and in strata titled developments has also increased the need for the ongoing management of strata properties and their communities. Choosing a career in the strata industry places you at the front line of this exciting time for growth and innovation in the property industry. The 2020 Australasia Strata Insights report, undertaken by UNSW, highlighted that the percentage of multi-dwellings continues to grow as urban population density increases. The strata industry in Australia has grown rapidly, specifically over the last 5 years. For a quick snapshot, the 2021 census data showed that 1.7 million Australians live in apartments. This has grown from 1.2 million back in the 2016 data. In 2015, construction starts for apartments overtook starts for houses, and much of Australia's population growth has occurred at the centre of our larger cities, which have grown upwards as quickly as they have grown outwards. In 2007, 30,000 apartments were built in high-rise buildings, increasing to almost 90,000 in 2015. This recent census data is now showing over 100,000 per annum. Since the majority of attached dwellings are managed through the strata industry, the demand for a skilled strata workforce has increased since 2015. In 2019, a Macquarie business banking study revealed that hiring intentions surged since 2015, with almost 3 out of 4 strata management businesses planning to grow their staff numbers. As a result, we have high competition for staff intensity, making it vital to engage and retain our talented people within the industry. There's been a lot of shift in focus throughout the industry, including legalities and management of disability and aged care access and building modifications, the multi-use developments, and disaster planning. Vocational education and training has proved to be a flexible, accessible and an adaptable platform for our education and skilling for the industry. We do have a support in Strata Community Management, which enhances the learning of skill sets that are required and in demand by the strata industry. Although strata managers are not required to be accountants, insurance brokers, builders, communicators, sanitation and waste experts, or many other professions, customers and employers do expect they require them to have a broad knowledge across each of these areas and disciplines. For example, a strata manager is not an accountant, but they are required to prepare budgets, financial reports, understand financial reporting, convey these budgets and reports to their customers in a manner that they will understand and comprehend. The strata manager's role is critical to making social cohesion, security, safety and mental physical well-being of residents in the schemes that they do manage. Previously, a strata manager's required level of skill and knowledge was determined by the size of the scheme. In recent years, emphasis on economy, sustainability, technology, and recently pandemics, mixed-use schemes, combustible cladding, building defects, and the increasing number of disputes in courts and arbitrations have shown that while the size of the scheme may be an important piece, these puzzles are vital and critical for property owners of all scheme sizes. Today, the strata industry as a whole demands strata managers with a broad and high level of complex skills and knowledge, and we'll have our panellists share that a bit later. The 2020 Australasian Strata Insights report also revealed that over 9,000 people were directly employed within strata management. We're currently undertaking our 2022 survey now and hope to have this data by the end of the year. Macquarie Bank's survey that I mentioned earlier also estimates that one new position in strata management for every 400 lots is coming, which equals to approximately 700 new positions required within the strata sector. Currently on Seek, there are around this number of positions advertised. The strata complexes constructed in 2020 have much higher levels of management requirement than the strata complexes built 10, 20 or 30 years ago. Lifts, basements, air conditioning and heating systems, complex fire safety systems with gyms, pools, saunas, rooftop gardens, each coming with their own rules, regulations, maintenance schedules and specialised maintenance and repair requirements. Even the older and smaller complexes are much more complex to manage, as new legislation covering accessibility, energy efficiency, insurance, pool and sauna usage and waste management, among others, add to the complexity of managing a strata scheme. Strata managers are at the coalface of some of the biggest issues facing strata residents and owners in Australia. Issues include high-profile building defects, such as flammable cladding, insurance issues for extreme weather events, and managing progressive living measures such as accessibility, the energy efficiency and sustainability, as mentioned earlier. The greater the training for strata managers, the greater the outcomes we achieve across all of these critical issues. The manager role does require your ability to be self-motivated and self-disciplined to efficiently manage a portfolio that can include controlling the administration of the common property, assisting in managing the needs of the community, governing the processes for repair and maintenance, arranging and conducting meetings of the strata community and its committee, maintaining appropriate insurance, and also administering the finances of the strata community. There are a range of skills and knowledge to learn when you join the strata industry. Many people enter the industry as a support team member in an administrative role. You will learn effective time management skills, how to actively problem solve and negotiate, the ability to mediate issues between stakeholders. You'll strengthen your verbal and written communication skills. You will touch on facility management. There's a lot of ethical practices and standards to understand, touching on crisis and risk management, building resilient client relationships, administering your meetings to achieve results, high attention to detail, and of course a broad understanding of a building's construction and mechanical services. As a strata manager, you will liaise with and negotiate and communicate with other industry sectors. There will be real estate and conveyancing industries, the development and construction industry, incorporating developers, builders, architects, surveyors, and building engineers. Many contractors and trades, incorporating plumbers, electricians, cleaners, gardeners, painters, fencers, concreters, and carpenters. Other government agencies, local councils, community affairs, taxation office, foreign emergency services, police, court services, and tribunal members. A lot of other key professions, including legal, insurance, finance, banking, accounting, and auditing, plus many others that will help you manage the needs and requirements and obligations of the Strata community and their scheme. There is opportunity to use your own personal experiences and knowledge within the current and developing industry to enhance communication with your clients. You can make your decision to enter the industry with a clear career path. There are national qualifications obtainable with a Cert 4 in Strata Community Management, as mentioned earlier, and also a diploma. It's all on the cards for an active, rewarding and progressive times ahead in the industry. There are varying state and territory jurisdiction qualification requirements. However, there is opportunity to grow and work across Australasia. I will have the panellists after mention more around their different requirements within their states with qualifications. There are entry opportunities also for school leavers, anywhere from Year 10 onwards, transitioning from a current administration role, or total professional career transitions. Again, our panellists will share their journey with us shortly. A manager does have many responsibilities, and some of these are covered earlier. I've placed these on the screen in detail to enable you to have some takeaway notes afterwards. As mentioned, it's financial management, gathering and analysing information for budgets, looking at reviewing plans and drawings, identifying and complying with legal principles, preparing and coordinating maintenance, facilitating chairing meetings, establishing legislative and governance requirements, managing conflicts and disputes, establishing legislative requirements for insurance and valuation of assets, contributing to sustainable solutions throughout the building life cycle, supporting 4 tribunal cases. I have made a note that this is not in all regions, but many. Working with subject matter experts to identify risks, implementing and monitoring procurement processes, monitoring construction contracts, and developing and maintaining business networks. COVID has driven a more flexible working environment for Strata. We will expand during the panel session on ways that some of the workplaces are supporting their staff with more working structure and benefits. For some background around the Strata Community Association, for those that are not aware, we are the peak body for the Strata community and body corporate managers, lot owners and service providers living and working in Strata title, body corporate, community title and owners corporations. Our membership does incorporate Strata Managers, support staff and suppliers of products and services, and we do have owner subscribers. We do fulfil the role of a professional institute and also a consumer advocate. Currently, SCA has more than 3,000 members who oversee, advise or manage a combined property portfolio with an estimated replacement value of over $1.2 trillion. As an industry association, we provide educational opportunities to introduce you to the industry, ongoing education to increase your knowledge and avenues to support you with industry best practices and also to develop your skills. For career progression, business management and ownership and unique professional development opportunities across all aspects of management, a career in strata management will make you an integral and vital part of this energetic, exciting and evolving industry. SCA does have some strategic priorities around education and the strata workforce. We are looking at improved education quality by recently conducting a review of the qualification units for the Cert 4 and the diploma to bring them in line with the current work environment, developing the content with subject matter experts for this new qualification, producing career industry skills job role cards for government websites, producing entry-level documentation for school leavers, including career guidance counsellor packs, producing documentation to attract entrants from other industry sectors. We are producing and delivering an online campaign on becoming a strata manager, with this webinar being the start. We are making arrangements with organisations to agree on a program for people looking to get back into the workforce with work placements. We're also participating in career exhibitions, visiting universities and TAFEs, and I know that we're currently looking at scholarships programs which will enable work experience with our members. As an industry, we do reward those that are developing themselves within the industry. As a Strata Manager, you can take advantage of post-nominal credentials to place with your title as a Strata Community Manager to reflect your commitment to continual development, as well as high ethical and professional standing within the industry. Over the past year, SCA has started a free mentoring program which builds resilient Strata workforce and continues to provide new entrants to the sector with a support network along with long-term supporting members as mentors to support their professional growth to a new level. This program is supported by Active and partnered with Mentor Loop. We have now completed our second round of this program, and it's wonderful to see the connections that have been made between mentees and mentors, many which will last a lifetime, and they are stretched right across Australia. The industry also celebrates excellence by having awards. I've listed a few of the awards here which recognise those early entry members into the industry as support team members and Rising Star being those entering the industry and being a manager under 2 years. We then recognise growth of those that are accredited as Strata Community Managers and Senior Managers. And we also recognise managers who work together with their community on environmental and engagement areas. So how do you get started? We do have a Strata Starter for Managers in most of the territories and states around Australia. We have a 3-day A100 NZ100 introduction to working in Strata. And then, of course, there's the Cert 4 in Strata Community Management, starting with a certificate of registration in New South Wales. And just finally, before we move on to the panel, there are many other roles available in Strata. So if following this presentation you realise that Strata is not for you, you can still reach out to us because we do have many Strata suppliers who are looking for employees with hands-on experience. Thanks, Nikki.
Thanks, Alisha. That was a great overview. I'm sure you've given people lots to think about. So what we might do now, as you mentioned, we'll move into talking to the panellists. So I might get Will Marquand first from Tower Body Corporate to come on and explain his situation.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki, and thanks for that presentation, Alisha. I mean, Alisha, what the thing that you were saying in that presentation that really interests me is you talked about the breadth of the roles that we touch on in Strata, and then also the opportunities, because it's sort of a relentlessly growing industry. And those are the two factors that really keep me interested in the industry on a day-to-day basis as we, as I look at my job and what might happen over the next 5 years. But to be honest with you, when I started working in the industry, they weren't really factors that I knew about at all. In fact, I knew almost nothing at all about Strata when I rocked up on my first day of the job. I got involved in the industry in probably quite an unusual way compared to many people. I was a journalist. I was working in Sydney, and I really enjoyed working as a journalist. Writing is kind of my passion, and good writing and things like that. And I had always kind of hoped to make a career in that industry, but unfortunately the reality is that the publishing industry as a whole was going through great turmoil at the time, and job opportunities were limited. So I had a job that was okay, but it wasn't paying me very much. I had a wife, 2 kids, mid-30s. I was looking down the barrel of where am I going to be in 5 or 10 years time, and I didn't really like the look of it very much. And I was sort of thinking about what other opportunities I could, where my life might take me, and what career opportunities would be available to me. And Strata really just came to me as a piece of good luck. Through my parents, as it happens, they were on holiday south of France, sitting at their table in a hotel having breakfast, and there's an Australian couple next door to them, and they say, "Hello, how are you doing? Are you from Australia?" And they say yes, and they sort of start talking about life. They're like, "Oh, my son lives in Sydney. We're a bit worried about him. We don't think he's going to do that well in life," or this kind of thing. And the Australian couple, the man, they said, "Well, I run a Strata company. We're always looking for people Why doesn't he give me a call? Which is probably not how most people get into the industry, but it's how it worked for me. So I've got a phone number of someone who is, open to engaging new recruits into the industry, I suppose. And I gave him a ring. Very nice chap, and he offered me a job. I said, thanks very much. And I thought I was onto a winner. I had a quick look at the industry, and I could see right from the beginning that there was obviously opportunities for growth and development within that. My experience thereafter was probably a bit mixed. I started straight up as a manager with a full portfolio of a large number of buildings, pretty much from day one. As it happens, the person before me hadn't really done any work on that portfolio for the last year or so. So pretty much my first morning, my phone's ringing red hot. I've got angry customers saying to me, what's going on? Why hasn't my plumbing been fixed, or why hasn't the wall been built, or something like this? It's quite a difficult start in many ways, but because I think I was motivated by my lack of opportunity in my previous career, I was quite determined to make it work. And I spent a lot of time, and especially in that first year, trying to learn the industry, working with the customers, talking and listening to the customers about what they wanted. And over time, we turned that portfolio around, which was quite good for me in terms of my confidence as a manager, and then also like giving me a accelerated progression, I think you might say, because I had to deal with a whole lot of things that perhaps it's not ideal to deal with in your first year as a manager, but that's how it goes. That's how it goes sometimes. And if you're placed in a sink or swim situation, sometimes you swim and it goes okay. So I was reasonably comfortable that worked out well. And then what I've always leaned on as a manager, because I came into the industry with no real knowledge of how it worked. And, I'm not really an expert in buildings or anything like that. If you come around to my house and you see my DIY efforts, you can, they provide testament to my own personal failures of understanding buildings. So what I've always leaned on is that I came from a position as a communicator. So I was a journalist, and then previous to that, I was a teacher. And both of those jobs involve being in a position where you take information from one position, and you have to provide it to a group of people who want to use that information in a more simplified way. And so my job as a Strata manager is, I see it as broadly similar. I've always used those communication skills, which is that there's complicated legislation, there's groups of different stakeholders, they're all kind of, there's a large amount of information available. And my job, as far as possible, is to condense that and simplify it for the customers so that they can understand what is required of their building, and then hopefully place them in a situation where they can make the right decisions for their building. Obviously, the better quality information I can give them, the better they understand it, the better the decisions for their buildings that they make. So that's really how I approach my job. But the interesting thing is that I've met many managers across the industry, and a lot of people approach it in totally different ways, reliant on their own different skills and ability. And what you find is that there is no one formula, or there's no perfect answer to how to be a body corporate manager. There's just different means, and you have to understand what your strengths are, rely on those, and also understand what your weaknesses are, and then rely on other people in your organization to support your weaknesses as you move forward. So then, as a manager, I've sort of progressed along the tracks for the past 5 or 6 years. Eventually, I became the general manager of Tower a couple of years ago, which is a very enjoyable position. We're just a small company, and my goal within the company now is to try to create a ethical business that helps the customers understand their properties. And what I really want to do is help people who want to have better properties run their properties better. It's as simple as that. And then try to create a company that facilitates all of that. So that's my little story in a nutshell. I'll pass on to the next. Back to you, Nikki. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Will, for sharing that story with us. That was really great to hear. It's really good that we've got such a diverse panel today too, and we've got people coming in that have done different things. They've had different pathways to get to where they're going. So thank you for sharing that with us. And Dilber, I might just jump to you now if you can share your story with us.
Thank you. So with my background, I basically was working in some law firms and studying law, and had a minor exposure to property settlements, and then moved over, and I actually worked for a developer for a little bit of time as well as a contractor. So I had a small amount of exposure with that as well, and got headhunted because I was doing accounts by a strata company. So that strata company actually contacted me and asked me to come in for a job interview because they needed an accounts manager and an insurance manager. So they were a medium-sized strata company. I went off to the job interview, and partway through the job interview, they offered me the position immediately. So I basically started in strata that day and ended up working in the insurance and accounts of the company, which was great exposure because I got to see the other side of how a strata company is run and other aspects, not just via strata management. After working in that position for a while, the owner of the company sold to a different owner, and then I moved over into strata management and eventually left that company and opened up my own company. So we're based in New South Wales, and I have to say, I think being exposed to the running of the strata company via the administrative side, the accounts, seeing how accounts worked, seeing how insurance worked, helped when I transitioned to strata management. And then in turn, that helped with opening up my own business.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's another diverse pathway, and it's really good to hear that you've come from sort of a strong industry and that it's been able to benefit you as you've worked in the strata industry as well. So thank you. And Nicole, we might just jump to you now too.
No worries. Hello, everybody. My experience of getting into strata is vastly different from our last two panelists. I moved to Australia when I was 16, many moons ago. And I was living in a strata with my family, and I had just completed a diploma in business management. I had no idea what I was going to be doing with my life. So sitting on my parents' couch every day, not an option to continue with. And I just started chucking my resume out to everyone and anyone. The company that contacted me back was a strata management company. I'd applied for a role as an administration assistant. I went in for my interview, and a day later I got a phone call to say, yep, you've got the job. So I walk into the strata agency the day after I turned 19, and have been in the strata industry ever since. I believe I was a start from the bottom, work my way to the top type of person. So I started with being an administration assistant. I was an assistant to the general manager of the company. I was then a strata associate. So I had my own portfolio, but I also assisted managers with their work. Once one of my managers left the company, I was then asked to take on her portfolio and the role of being a strata manager. From there, just kept grinding along, became a senior strata manager, eventually became a team leader where I had a team of about 6 that I helped to mentor, coach, guide, however you like to describe it, assist them with difficult curly questions that we get on a daily basis, and encourage them to continue to provide the best service possible. I then was in a position where I got offered to be the operations manager of my strata department, and I took that position. I remember the day that it was announced to my team, and they all said I looked terrified, and I said yes. And it's not because of the clients, it was because of the staff. I had to make sure that I gave them the best possible support. So I did that for a few years, and just recently I have changed companies and gone back into just being a strata manager. I always hate using that word, and it just comes out, doesn't it? And I'm back to doing what I love, which is to work with my clients and help them and provide a good service, help them to be educated in what a strata industry has to offer. I'm from the ACT, and we've gone through some legislation changes in the last 2 years, and that's really formed my career path in training. I do a lot of training programs inside our company. I've also been working with the SCA, with Alisha and the team, and want to continue to support everyone in making sure everyone knows what's going on in strata, not just in the ACT, but nationally as well. And yeah, so my strata career has really been start from the bottom, and now we're here. Look at us go. And yeah, look forward to answering some of the questions that I can see popping up on the screen right now.
Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, there are quite a few popping up, which is really good to see. We did have a question, and you've sort of covered it a bit in the discussion that you just had then, from Rose, just asking for other opportunities that are available apart from strata management within the offices. I had just typed a quick reply to say that it does depend on the size of the company that you're in and what roles are offered there. But you've just covered a few different roles that you've been involved in a few different businesses that you've been in. So hopefully that's given Rose a bit more of an idea of the diversity. But did you have anything else to say about that, Nicole, while I've got you there?
Look, there are very many roles. When I started, I was the administration side. So I actually found that that really helped my career, because I got to see the strata from the back end, I guess, dealing a lot with the accounts side of things, back end of insurance, a little bit of IT administration stuff going on in the background. And then when I jumped over and became on the other side as a strata manager, I understood what was going on in the administration side and could help bridge that gap to explain to clients what was going on. There are many different roles in strata management companies. It does depend on the size. Some larger corporations will have, larger companies will have different teams, insurance teams, admin teams, and then the strata teams. You've got support staff all over the place as well. And then some of the smaller companies will have that all rolled into the one role. So it's really about, as Alisha said, being multi-skilled in a lot of different departments.
That's it. Okay, well, thank you for that. And I might just ask, there's a lot going on in chat at the moment, and one of the things that's come up a few times is the qualifications in the different states. So Alisha, would you like to address that? I know you've put a few comments in the chat, but did you have anything more to add about that?
Yeah, I can probably just, to be honest, most of the states have no minimum requirements to be a strata manager, so you can start within the workforce immediately, whether you're coming in as, like Nicole said, from the administration role or coming in at the professional level as a manager. New South Wales is a licensed state, and Dilber can probably explain a bit more about this, but they do have 3 tiers that you have to work your way through for education to undertake certain roles. And so I'm not going to cover that. I might pass to Dilber in a minute to dig into that. But the other states, it's only the principals that have to have a real estate qualification in most of the other states. And as I said, probably 80% of the states have no qualification requirement. So Dilber, I might just pass to you to just explain the specifics of the tiers that you have in New South Wales.
Look, I'll run through a rough rundown. So in New South Wales, you've got Class 1 and Class 2 licensed strata managers. So you must do CPD training. Part of the professional standards scheme that we've also implemented means that you've got to do an extra I think it's 3 hours of CPD for PSS as well. So you've got your certificate of registration, then you've got your classes of strata management licenses. You can apply for either, I think it's 1, 3 or 5 year license. So you have to register your license with the Department of Fair Trading as well. And just quickly, to become a Class 1 strata managing agent, you have to have held a Class 1 agent in strata management for 1 year before you can apply to become a Class 2. To become Class 2, you have had to have held a Class 1 license for at least 2 years. You have to complete work experience during that 2-year period, and you've got to complete a diploma of property. So I think it's agency management, property services, diploma of property services. But also prior to doing that, you've got to do your certificate of registration. So to become class 1, you need to do a certificate of registration course and hold that certificate of registration for 2 years as well. So it's not very easy to, well, it's not too hard, but it does take a substantial amount of time to become a strata manager in New South Wales. We're heavily regulated. You've got to be licensed. Everything's got to be registered with the Department of Fair Trading. Yeah.
Okay, and we've had a few people that have asked questions about they might be retired or they're looking to get into the industry and what's the next step. So do you usually find people go ahead and sort of start training and get a qualification first and then apply for a position, or are businesses happy for you to apply for a position first and then carry out training while you're actually working within the industry?
So in order to apply for your studies, you need to be working in the industry. That's part of the requirements to be able to study. So to do the certificate of registration, it's highly recommended that you're already working in the industry. But to move up to class 1, class 2, you have to be working in the industry, and you've got to be working in the industry for set periods of time before you can move up to those class licenses. So
okay.
it takes about, from start to finish, I think it's about 2 years, 1 year, 2 years. So it's about 5 years to become a class 2 licensed strata managing agent, if that's what you want to do in New South Wales.
Okay, so yeah, that's New South Wales. So just to make that clear, and it does differ in other states. Will, how do you feel about, do you think people are best to go off and start their studies, or to actually start in the industry before they look at studying, either or?
Yeah, it could go either way, because it could depend on a great number of factors. Some people obviously like to study and like to have that confidence behind them. Other people are more comfortable just sort of sitting in a job and finding out what the experience is. So I don't think there's necessarily a set pathway forwards in terms of how you can proceed. If you are interested, though, I think the real thing is that you show strata companies that interest. You know, there's generally jobs available. If you look on Seek, there's always people advertising, and it might be that those jobs that are around, you don't necessarily match the skills that they've listed as their requirements. But the reality is, I think the most strata companies are looking for good people as much as anything else, rather than a sort of set series of experience or anything like that. So if you're a competent person with a good range of general office skills and ability to communicate with people, you should reach out to different strata companies and see what the response that you get is, because I think more often than not it'll be positive, and that people, if they think you're the right fit for the industry, I think a lot of companies will try to make a job fit around you to some extent, rather than just their own preset ideas of what the candidate might be.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Nikki. I was just going to. I just saw a comment in the chat about Western Australia. So Western Australia. The comment was that they currently have requirements. So they do have requirements that are coming. You can currently start in the industry like many of the other states, but by 2024 you will have to have a Cert 4 in Strata Community Management. They are discussing at the moment whether they shift to have tiers like New South Wales, but that will definitely come into play around 2024.
Okay, thank you for that. And the other thing that people have asked, I notice in there, sorry, I'm trying to keep up with what's in there because there is, as you see, lots going on. But another thing that came up a few times is and obviously I guess this is because of what's happening in the industry and people are stressed with staff. And so a lot of the strata managers out there are overloaded with portfolios, and they're looking after really large portfolios because the staff isn't in there to spread the portfolios over the people that are working on the in those roles. So people have just asked, what sort of a portfolio would you normally be managing, and why is there so much stress on strata managers at the moment? Anybody?
Oh, sorry. Well, for New South Wales, I think it's because of legislative changes. We're now looking at substantial amount more of administrative work that we have to do prior to the legislative changes back in 2015. So there's a substantial amount of extra work that we have to do now, and which we didn't have to do with the previous legislation. We've also now, we have the Strata Hub, where we need to be uploading specific information to the government Strata Hub, which is, again, additional administrative work, which I think is fantastic. I think it's great that the government is really getting involved with the strata industry, especially in New South Wales. And that would be why there's so much more administrative work now than there was previously.
Okay, and in other states, Nicole, did you want to jump in and make a comment?
I just wanted to talk about, when it comes to portfolio sizes, it really does depend on the manager as well, and their personality and the type of buildings that they're looking after. And obviously it changes from company to company and manager to manager. When I was with a previous company, we had the workload shared because we had a lot of our administrative support staff to do sort of the background work, so our strata managers could really focus on building those relationships and being that frontline meetings, talking to owners on the phone and email. And I remember again, this is many years ago, things change, but when I was the team leader of my team, I also managed probably about a dozen buildings, but that equated to around about 1,200 lots. For me, that was fine. That workload was doable because I had that support staff with me. Now in this new company that I'm with, we're smaller, we're more boutique, and the strata manager does a lot more of the administration stuff themselves. So now my portfolio in terms of lots is a lot smaller. So we'll be looking at about 25 buildings and around about that 800 lot count. But I'm just as busy. The workload hasn't changed, but the type of work that I'm doing has changed. So it really does depend on the way that the role is structured as to what a manager can take on.
And it does depend on the portfolio itself too, doesn't it? And you mentioned you had, was it 8 buildings at 1,200 lots, and then you had 25 buildings at 800 lots. And so there's a difference there because you're dealing with 25 committees rather than 12 committees. And so, yeah, the balance is a little bit different there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Some of the other questions, there was one about pay. So Alisha, I might jump to you. They just asked what sort of pay rates people would be expecting, which I think is a good question.
I was going to say, this is probably not one for me. So probably, I'm not sure if someone else is willing to give the broad scale of what it is. It does vary, and I suppose, as Nicole said, it would vary based on experience, the portfolio sizes, complexity of what they're managing. Does anyone, Dilber or someone, want to have a go?
I think we've got, in New South Wales, we've got an industry standard of roughly $220 per lot for management fees for a strata plan. So, yeah, and it definitely varies. It varies depending on the number of buildings you've got, the number of lots you're looking after. And it can vary, there could be Schedule Bs or insurance commission, and that could also raise the income of the strata manager as well.
I guess a good advice there would be, if you're interested, jump on to Seek and have a look at what people are offering and what they're asking for and what the experience levels are in there, and that will give you a really good idea of what the industry is looking for at the moment as well.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on, we have had stories of people, though, that oversell themselves for a strata role, and then they come in and it's overwhelming because they're underqualified for what they're taking on, or they can't handle the workload. So I think just be very careful that, yes, all the money looks wonderful when you're applying for a job, but at the end of the day, that does come with a lot of responsibility and complexity in that environment. So, yeah, we try and caution people to start at a certain level and make sure you can grow within the business and the industry.
Good advice. Okay, and it does vary state to state as well, doesn't it? There's quite a big difference in pay rate from state to state. Okay, we did have some questions that were submitted, even though there's a lot going on in chat. We had some questions that were sent in to us. We might just jump back to those so that we cover those. So we had one from Glenys from Queensland saying, I'm a licensed REA currently on the Gold Coast. I am a former strata property owner and an on-site caretaker with the experience of 7+ years. My question is, what's the best strata manager qualification to obtain to interest potential employers? So I think we've covered that in a few other states, but Will, I might go to you since it is in Queensland.
Well, there are no qualification requirements in Queensland, which I consider to be a significant negative for the industry. Hopefully it's something that will change fairly quickly from my perspective. If you were looking at getting qualified, I think you'd probably look towards the SCA, which has a range of different qualifications that are available to people. If you go on their website, you can find they've got different levels of qualifications and just start from there to see what's appropriate for you. But you're not actually required to have anything, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, I was just going to say I can expand on that. So in Queensland for our SCA, for our membership, we do try and encourage people to get a Cert 4 to try and achieve the Level 2 accreditation, which enables you to have it. You do have to have a Level 2 qualified manager within your business to become a member of SCA. So if you want your business to be included in the SCA professional, code of conduct and all the things that we do and promote the industry, then they do aim for that, because the state doesn't have that minimum qualification. So they have set that themselves as an industry body.
Okay. And we've got I actually submitted this question. This is a question from me for everybody. So if you are someone who's going for an interview for a position as a strata manager, what are some good questions to ask the potential strata management firm? Anybody?
Happy to jump in. In my role as operations manager, I did a lot of interviewing, and I've noticed a couple of things in the chat there about people, talking about the high turnover of staff in the strata industry. I wouldn't even say a good question to ask, but a good thing to be able to relay to a potential employer when you're looking to get into the strata industry is your coping skills. So strata is one of those industries that is, it's fast paced. You do have high expectations placed on you, and where you have owners coming to you with their issues, they're talking about a piece of property, an asset that's personal to them. So they are highly emotional when they talk about these things. So it's good to be able to empathise with people, to help explain things. We talk a lot about emotional intelligence in strata as well. So when you're looking at coming into the strata industry, look at yourself first and think, how good am I at helping other people, active listening, all of those really great qualities. And then talking to that potential employer about, how do you deal with your day-to-day strata life? What are some of the things that I will come across, so that I can help to understand myself, that I will be able to cope with that. A lot of people come into strata and don't realise that it's really demanding, and it can be very emotional, and some people can't deal with that, and that's why we see that high turnover. So I think a really good thing is, look at how you like to help people, and whether that's something that you would want to do as a career.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone else got anything to add to that as well?
I think it's important to be very honest with yourself about what you can do and what you want to do in your day. I've been in job interviews, and sometimes there's a higher salary out there, and of course I'm tempted. I want it, I want extra money, but in the end, that job might not be the right job for me, and I sort of have to try to be honest about that, because maybe in my life, for example, I've got 2 kids to look after. I want to try to be home in the evenings more regularly than not, right? So it's better if I'm having a real conversation with the potential company about, well, that's actually what's really important to me, and that's more important to me than making an extra $10,000 or $20,000 or something like that. The more I've understood myself as an individual in that sense, the better role I've found to fit around my life, I've discovered. So I think you have to the candidate has to be very honest within themselves about what it is that they want, then try to explain that to the interviewee to see if you're a good fit, really. I'd always try to talk to the companies as much as possible about their ethical standpoints and just their overall philosophy about how staff should be treated, and try to feel if that's a good fit for you. Some people like quite intense, very high, fast work that's very well rewarded. And there are companies out there that do that, and they do that very well, and then they're a good fit. Other people might want to have like a more balanced life where it's you know, their work's important, but their home life's important too. And there are companies that do that as well. And I think you have to try to, what's important in Strata is you have to try to find a company that fits your personality well. There's lots of companies, there's lots of different roles, but I think what there are is there's a lot of people in the industry who are perhaps sort of square pegs in round holes to some extent, and that they'd all be a little bit happier just perhaps if they could shift around, but it doesn't always work out. It doesn't always work out like that. But when you are looking at an interview, you have to try to make sure that you are that sort of round peg in a round hole as far as possible.
And I think Alisha touched on it as well in the presentation about the flexibility to work from home as well. And I think that's something that Strata lends itself quite well to. And that's something that maybe you could inquire about too, because I think a lot of offices are actually offering, maybe not initially when you first start out, because it's good to have that support when you're in an office situation and learn about the role. But when you're a little bit more down the track, you can have that flexibility to do that work from home for a couple of days possibly, and then a few days in the office as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, can I just quickly touch on 2 projects that we're doing, which obviously overlaps from Nicole and what Will had mentioned. We are currently working with Curtin University on a Thrive at Work program. So basically we're surveying the whole industry on what makes you enjoy your work and what are the things that concern you within your workplace. And so we're hoping that will assist us in building a better work-life balance for the industry, also understanding what resilient measures we can put in place to support those that are starting in the industry, but also those that have been in the industry long term. The other piece, which people talk about, is the intensity of working with owners and their demands. And so we are actually currently working on we've got a Strata Respect Task Force, which is working on a campaign to firstly have owners and managers respecting each other, but also those living in strata communities respecting each other that you live with, and expanding that, because as we know through COVID, it's got a lot more intense and a lot higher demands have come forward as people have been living at home, working from home. So they're 2 big projects that we're working on at this current point in time.
And they sound fantastic, and we're really keen to share some more of that as you progress, Alisha, and maybe we could jump back on for another session down the track when you're ready to launch that and talk about how that's going and what it's doing for the industry, which sounds really good. Okay, well, we're just about at the end of the session. We've only got a few minutes to go. Always goes super fast and we don't get through as much as we think we're going to. But what we might do before we wrap up is just jump to everybody on the panel and ask them if they can share with us probably the thing that they like most about their role. Maybe the thing they like least. That's up to you. I'll leave that up to you whether you wanted to mention that or not, but maybe if we do that. So Dilber, do you have something to share with us there?
Oh, most definitely. There's a couple of things I really like about my role, I have to say. Having come from a legal background, I really love being exposed to so much legislation within our industry in our state, and having been put on the board of the SCA New South Wales for the last 6 months, I found a greater exposure to that, reviewing position papers. I really enjoyed that for the government. I really love being able to give back to the industry that I'm in. I also love when a task is complete, especially if it's a big task. Defect rectification, once that's all done, it's just so much weight off your shoulders, I guess, to know that you've made someone's life a little bit better and helped them in a way unimaginable, I guess, especially if they've got leaks coming into their unit. With the new buildings, we're finding that a little bit more often in our state, unfortunately. So being able to help and rectify a client, an owner, it is a very good feeling. It is.
Lovely. And I can see the passion when you speak about it. So that's lovely to see.
Thank you.
Okay, Nicole, would you like to say what you find most rewarding?
Everything. Oh my gosh. So because I started in the industry so young, I always tell people, this is all I know. Please don't stick me in the real world. I wouldn't know what to do with myself. So I love Strata just because I love learning. There is so much to learn out there. Legislation changes. There's differences in different states and territories. I've done some study of New South Wales stuff. Unfortunately, Will, you've convinced me. I'm going to start looking into Queensland now. And it's every day I'm going to be learning something different. And the stories that I can tell at a dinner party from some of hilarious. I will keep people up for days. So yeah, I love the Strata industry. I love what it offers for me. I love the people that I work with, clients, contractors, colleagues. We're very collaborative down here in the ACT, and we love to get together and talk and help each other, which I really appreciate. And if there was anything that I disliked about Strata is that I do have the option to work from home if I so need to. And then I feel like I'm missing out because I'm not in the office with my colleagues.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And Will, have you got something you'd like to share as well?
Sure. Well, three quick things that I like. One is I genuinely like helping people, and sometimes I'm in a position where I can achieve that. You know, I can help them have a better building, you know, achieve their goals of maybe having the building painted or the roof repaired, and that makes their life better. And I'm satisfied when I have played my little part in achieving that. It's a real source of, you know, genuine happiness within myself. Two, within all the jobs I've had, I've always really enjoyed the camaraderie in the office and working with almost all of the other Strata managers I've worked with. As a collection of people, I've found them, you know, quite entertaining and always like supportive of each other, because it can be quite a hard job. So I think all of the managers I've worked with across all of the offices have always been quite collegiate amongst each other, and there's always been generally been a positive atmosphere among the managers, which I think is quite important in terms of your day-to-day work. And then three, sort of from a bigger picture thing, that what I enjoy is opportunity. You know, there's I don't think anyone really knows what's going to happen in the Strata industry in the next 10 years, but I know there's going to be lots of opportunities. And for someone like me, I like thinking my way through what might happen next, or putting plans in place to see if they will work. And you know, that gives me some excitement in terms of my job. I know that the job I'm doing today is probably not going to be quite the same job I'm going to be doing next year. It might be quite very different in 5 years' time. And I'm excited by that, interested to see what will happen next.
I guess there's never a dull day, is there really? Something happening every day. And thank you, Will. And Alisha, would you like to share, just from an industry point of view, positives about the industry as well before we go?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, we have the mentoring program. As an industry, it is, I've worked across quite a few industries now, and I find that it's quite a community driven internally as well. So there's a lot of peer-to-peer sharing across companies. It's not just within one workplace. We do come together for state conferences, events and national conferences to share and learn from each other. And I think that strengthens the industry and provides that resiliency behind everyone.
Excellent. No, that's great. All right. Well, wonderful. We're sorry if you did submit a question and we weren't actually able to get to it today. We're still happy to answer those questions. So if you'd like your question answered, or you've got something that's come up during the session that you feel you don't have an answer for, feel free to jump onto the LookUpStrata website and go to our Ask a Strata question page and send that in, and we can send that off to people. Also, if you're interested in learning more, please get back in touch with us, and we can share your contact details with maybe Alisha. Is that the best way to do it, do you think, Alisha, if we share them with you and then you can...
Yeah, absolutely fine.
Okay,
yeah.
Excellent. So feel free to do that. I know there are a lot of companies out there, and you'll see that if you're interested, just jump on to Seek and have a look. There are a lot of companies out there looking for people at the moment. So yeah, definitely we should be able to put you in touch with someone, or at least give you a pathway to move forward. So thank you to our panelists today, Alisha and Nicole and Will and Dilber. Thank you for joining us and sharing all those experiences that you've got out there. You're quite candid with the information that you've provided, and I think that the people that have jumped on the session today are happy to have learnt that. I noticed a few comments up there with people saying they understand the role of the Strata Manager a bit better today, which I think was another sort of aim that we had for having the session, and being able to talk about in a conversation manner about the day-to-day workings of how the role works, and the pressures that you're under, and the things that you enjoy about the situation. So we thank you very much for coming on and joining us and sharing all that information with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for this educational session. If you gained value from the information, please like this video. You can also engage further with LookUpStrata by subscribing to our YouTube channel, or by being kept informed about Strata news via our regular newsletters. Our subscribe link is listed in the description box below.